Vaishnavi, are you ready to do this?
Yes,
All
yes, I
right.
am.
So five, four, three, two, and one. All right, folks, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I am very excited to have as my guest today, Vaishnavi Katta. Vaishnavi, welcome.
Hello.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. So, Vaishnavi is a sophomore from Livonia, Michigan, studying biology, hoping to one day go to medical school. She enjoys Mentality magazine because it provides her an outlet to express those wayward thoughts that bounce around in her mind from time to time. Now, Mentality magazine now correct me if I'm wrong here, Vaishnavi, but Mentality magazine is the
Mhm.
first college publication nationwide that focuses solely on mental health.
Yeah,
Correct?
and
Okay.
it's the first like student-run publication. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
for
And we'll get
athletes.
we'll get
Yeah.
more to that. Um,
Mhm.
So Vaishnavi also loves the quiet moments between her and a good book. She's excited to be part of Mentality this year and hopes to create a safe space for people to be themselves. All right, Vaishnavi. And before we get going, share with our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
Yeah, I'm actually from here, like Michigan, Livonia, Michigan, particularly, but I'm living in Ann Arbor, attending the University of Michigan. The bio is a little outdated, actually. I'm a junior, so I just finished my junior year, so I have one more year of college,
Okay.
and then we'll figure things out from there, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are you still looking forward to go to medical school or what? Has that
Actually,
shifted?
I think that's shifted a little bit.
Okay.
I've really gotten more into like the idea of like pursuing like a PhD or a PsyD or an MSW. I've been looking into that route more. Um, I've gotten more active in like mental health and wellness recently, and I really enjoyed it. I feel like it's something that brings a lot of joy uh
Awesome.
for me and like a lot of purpose. So I feel like that's something I want to pursue further.
Okay. So let's start here. So, how did all this start for you? And you can take that
Uh,
question anywhere you want to
yeah.
go.
All right. Yeah. Well, so like before I joined the magazine, like I think my interest in like mental health and mental wellness really started with kind of my family. Because my family, so like for context, like uh bipolar disorders, schizophrenia, a lot of these like disorders, they run pretty like they run through my family, and it's being Indian and being Indian American, there's such a huge stigma around it,
Mhm.
and it just really wasn't discussed. So within my family unit, I kind of became like the person to like people that talked like they talked to me about this stuff because I was someone who understood it. I was like the oldest daughter. Uh, it's just it kind of like defined like, my dynamic in that way with my parents. And it kind of translated into like how I like was in school and was with my friends and stuff. So I just became kind of like the person everyone went to and talked about mental health. And so that's kind of like where I started with like getting into that.
Mhm.
But then like looking into it further, I really liked like the emotional intelligence of like therapy or like looking into like exploring my own sensitivity and how that made me like stronger as a person. And a lot of that actually stemmed from like the anxiety I faced myself, I thought. So like seeing like anxiety and depression not as a weakness, but as like as a part of you that you can explore
Mhm.
and like overcome, but not like something that makes you inherently weak was something very like important to me. So like
Let me hang on
uh
one second.
yeah,
Hang on. Let me just interrupt you 1 second. First of all, I want to appreciate you sharing this because I know it's not always easy to come on
yeah.
a podcast and just start sharing about your family. But so you mentioned your family and what had been going. How did you realize what was going on? How did, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So with the yeah, with my family and everything, I know it was when I was younger. I remember having to call like 911 once for my dad because he was having like a episode where it was like he was having like psychosomatic pains because of his bipolar disorder. And after that, like my mom kind of told me what was going on with that. And then later on, I found out about all the history in my family and stuff dealing with like mental illness, but it was always like a shh, keep it quiet type of thing. And then I was like,
As it is in a lot of families, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. And I didn't want to keep it quiet. And I also thought that the need to keep it quiet was what made it such a like a taboo in the first place. So like yeah, so I just kind of like, yeah, so that's kind of like where it started. But and like talking with my family, like talking about my family's mental health, like I don't love to like get too deep into it, but like
Of
talking
course.
about my own, I'm like an open book, like and talk endlessly. Like I am like I don't feel any shame in it. I think that that's so important for other people to see. Uh,
Now, how did, okay, so you learned
mhm.
about that through your family. Now, did you, when and did you start experiencing your own issues with mental health? What did that look like for you?
Yes. Yeah. It was in high school when I first, like, I think it was like my sophomore year of high school. And I just started having like the worst panic attacks ever. And I just started like, I was always like like a sensitive kid growing up. And my mom would always call it like say it like a bad thing, like apologetically, like she's so sensitive. But like, I've always known that. But like in high school is when like the anxiety really started to like pick up. And I think part of that was just like growing up is hard and growing up not knowing who you are is hard. So like I think that kind of identity crisis inspired by adolescence really led to a lot of anxiety and panic attacks. And also like I dealt with some depressive episodes in high school. It actually got really bad like last year, I would say it was my worst depressive episode ever, which really prompted a huge shift in my entire lifestyle, which this was even after I joined mentality actually. So it's kind of interesting to see how like even when you like recognize these parts of yourself, like you can still
Mhm.
grow and evolve in that way. But yeah. Um
Okay, so excuse me. So, uh, did at any point in high school when you said you started experiencing things, did you see a therapist? Did you get help? What did that look like for you?
yeah, yeah. I definitely wanted to see a therapist. I definitely talked to my parents about that, and it wasn't really a thing that they wanted to explore necessarily, which is what was frustrating. And that was when I didn't have as much like agency over my health choices. So it was like it was hard because it was like I talked to my school counselors and my teachers, and they talked to my parents as well. My parents just weren't really on board with the idea of therapy. It felt like a waste of money, or it felt like a waste of like time to them, and that like I should build the strength to fix my own issues, which
Suck
obviously
it
you do.
up, basically.
Yeah, like literally, basically, yeah, yeah. Which is like that's therapy's to help you like have the building blocks to like face your issues. But I think there was like a skewed concept like misconception over there with my family. So I am in therapy now, but that didn't start until like last year when I was like in college. So when I can actually find my own therapist and figure things out. Yeah.
That seems like a really hard spot to be in because oftentimes people are told and advised, go get some help, talk to someone. And yet here you were doing all the right things and
Yeah.
telling people and coming up against a wall. So you get to University of Michigan, talk about how you became introduced to Mentality Magazine.
Yes. Okay, so my first year at University of Michigan, it was 2020, fall of 2020, which means it was very much like it was everything was online. I was at home then, so I wasn't in like Ann Arbor. I was back in my parents' house, and I had the worst semester. It being online, being away from like my like community I built in high school. This was my freshman year, so experiencing freshman year in college just online while like everything is going on in the world and at home. I just felt like I needed some sense of community. So I like literally opened up like the Maze pages, which is like the site that has all the club listings at University of Michigan. And I was like joining different meetings here and there, a bunch of different clubs. And then I stumbled upon Mentality magazine. And like, so I joined just like I joined meetings of a bunch of other clubs, but this one felt really like open and I felt like I could really talk about what was going on without it being like too heavy because
Mhm.
nothing was too heavy, like whatever you're experiencing, like you can talk about it in that like club. So I stuck with it. So I went like every week and even after COVID, when I came back on campus, I like I was still there as a club member. And then eventually I became content editor, which was like editing like the pieces. And then now I'm editor in chief. So like I run like the magazine. So and it's been very yeah, it's very fulfilling, I think.
Very cool. So walk us through this. So you joined this magazine, and did you actually go to meetings, or were they online also?
They were online. So
Okay.
like yeah, first they were like Zoom meetings, like this one. So it would be like 10-ish people in a Zoom and we just like talk like would be like we'd talk about a certain concept and then like they'd assign pieces and we could post on the website or like they'd set up print and it's kind of like how we run our meetings now, but it's a lot it was online basically and a little
Now,
bit more flexible.
was the understanding that the people who were part of this magazine all were what interested in mental health or experiencing issues themselves?
Yeah, I think it was a mixture. A lot of them were like psych students who are interested in mental health,
Okay.
and a lot of them are just like people that are like interested in their own mental health. They're sharing their own experience. So I think it's a good mix of the two. Yeah,
Now,
anyone can join.
getting on, before you came on, and as I was thinking about you in this
Yeah,
magazine, I think it takes a lot of courage to do that. I mean, right? You're stepping up
yeah.
and you're on this podcast and you're saying,
Mhm.
I've got stuff going on. What's that like for you? And how do you get to that point?
It honestly, like I feel like it's hard to like step up and be vulnerable, but it's so freeing, and I think like that's probably like the main feeling I get from it. Like just talking about this so openly about mental health, about my own struggles, or about stuff in the magazine that we talk about, I feel like it just opens up such a big dialogue surrounding these like more difficult topics. And I like you can ask any of my friends, like I love talking about stuff and I can talk endlessly. So just opening that dialogue up and allowing people to like think about their mental health in relation to themselves without judgment, I think is like the biggest key. And I think like stuff like a student run publication that does that like is one way to do that because it just shows that it's normal and everyone faces their problems and it can be a beautiful thing. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I mean, we've all got something going on,
Yeah.
and I think it's very easy for us, especially in this culture, to want to come across like we've all got it dialed in and there are no
Mhm.
issues. But in reality, I think you're hitting the nail on the head here. It is very freeing when you're able to say, you know what, this is a struggle for me. I've got this going on. Excuse me. So, when you first joined, was there any hesitation when you first joined this magazine about sharing what was going on? And was that an evolution for you?
Yeah, 100%. Like at first, I would go to the meetings and I would love to listen to other people, but I wasn't like sharing too much about myself. It was
Sure.
kind of like, oh, let me listen. And even when like writing like pieces for the website or pieces for our print, I was very like I kind of like restricted myself from being too vulnerable about it because I didn't think I was ready. And then like when I got more comfortable and stuff, I really did start to open up about the deeper stuff, which that part has been really nice. And I think as editor in chief, like doing that has like inspired a lot of really thoughtful, deep pieces, which has been really nice to see from other people.
Mm,
Because it's yeah, and I think like that's one of the responsibilities of being like a leader in mental health. I feel like you have to also embody what you preach, which can be really, really hard, but very necessary.
really hard. And hard, why, from your perspective?
I think it again is like that vulnerability portion. It's when you put yourself out there like that, there's a lot of room for judgment, and a lot of us like fear judgment. I mean, I don't like being judged or being, no one really does, but I think recognizing that there is that possibility and accepting it and still doing it anyway is probably the hardest part because there's a mental block around it. And I think once you do it enough, it's easier to eliminate that mental block. But that first time, the first time where you don't know what will happen if you put yourself out there, it's so hard to like jump over that hurdle, I think.
What's what's been you? Do your parents know that you're part of this magazine?
My my parents know vaguely. Like they know I'm part of a magazine.
Okay.
I don't know what if they know what it's about, and I don't think they've read anything I've written for it. Yeah.
So, what? Talk a little bit about the magazine in general, and then I want to ask you about some of your pieces specifically.
Yes, yes. Yes, the magazine in general. So we have like an online magazine and then we also have like a like print edition. I have like some here, like this is like our power of vulnerability piece. This is one we did for this semester. And then this one's like milestones. And so yeah, we do print magazines that we also post on their website, but and we also do like just weekly pieces on our website for anyone who wants to submit a piece. But um Yeah, so the print pieces are really fun because they center on one theme a semester. Like last semester we did like vulnerability, and the one before that we did purpose. So we get to explore
Mm.
different like realms of like mental health, and I think like it just adds a lot of like variety to the conversation, and I love doing those. And people like write and design their own pieces, and I think it's very fun to like get creative while talking about such important like things. And then on our website, we post like weekly pieces, which can be more like lighthearted. And also writers anytime are welcome to post, like give us any piece that they think would be relevant to our magazine. And even if they're not part of the club itself, they want to submit
Hmm.
something, we are very much open to it.
How old is the magazine?
I think we are, I believe, 7 years old now, so it was before my time.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Now,
Yeah.
I'm curious about the reaction from the other people, the other students in the school. What's that been like?
Yeah, so I think one of our biggest like hurdles of being in such a large university is not a lot of people know who we are, which can be a little frustrating. But we do like table at different like student organization events, and like we do try and get our name out there on social media, and that has been helpful. And I think overall the reception's been really positive. I I like a lot of students love to like pick up our magazines and just like read them at the end of the semester. Um, and it's been pretty positive. I think even if they don't like know like how to contribute, just having that like as a place or an outlet to contribute if they wanted to has been like
Hmm.
comforting to a lot of people, and that's what I've been told. Mhm.
Have you experienced stigma at all in, uh, well, I guess firstly, uh, when you talk about your issues with mental health, and then secondly, as part of the magazine, have you experienced it?
Um, Part of my like talking about my issues with mental health, I definitely feel like some of it I've been labeled sensitive a lot by people in like the most like I guess like derogatory way, which I don't think it's a derogatory thing at all, but like it's just like, oh, I feel like they turn it a lot into like an emotional problem or sometimes even a woman's problem, especially with stigma in my community, like my Indian American community and
Hmm.
within my family. It can be very much like you're overreacting. You're like, why are you so emotional? Why are you like caring so much? In terms of the magazine, I haven't took like shared it too much with my family and stuff, but in the university, I think it's pretty well received. Sometimes I feel like it's hard to gain like a lot of like respect for mental health magazine compared to other topics. I know, um, and that's the university has kind of shown that in some interesting ways, just like sometimes not like funding or like not like supporting, and that's been a bit of a
Interesting.
struggle. Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah,
But is that surprising to you, given the fact that this kind of gets me into my next question here, how
yeah,
our culture broadly in the United States and maybe even globally has shifted in terms of an understanding or at least awareness of mental health, right? You've
yeah.
got all these sports figures and celebrities
Mhm.
raising their hands saying, this is going on with
Right.
me. Have you noticed anything? What are your perceptions on that?
Yeah, I think in a university setting, it's really interesting because on one hand, there's a lot of messaging where it's like, yes, like we want to support your mental health, but a lot of it feels performative in some
Right.
senses. Like, yeah. So it's
But
like saying one thing.
don't get too serious. We'll support you, but don't ask for any
Yeah,
help.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow. Um, so what is your feeling personally on uh a lot of the shift in awareness of mental health? Are you seeing that? Are you even seeing that within your community? What?
Yeah, I think I feel like from year to year, there's like increasing, like the shift is increasing and a lot more awareness and understanding of health and like mental health and like, holistic health in general is being like explored and understood. I do think that like administration has struggled to keep up a little bit because it's like again, it's like that you're saying one thing to keep up with like the new like ideas surrounding mental health, but like the way like certain practices are built into like the university setting, like how grading works or how like the campus therapy system works, those still haven't caught up to like
Mm,
the new ideas surrounding it, which is like that delay is hard because you receive a message of it's okay to ask for help, but then there's not enough help to get, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. Let me just remind everyone that I'm speaking with Vaishnavi Katta. She's at the junior at the University of
Yeah.
Michigan and the editor in chief of Mentality Magazine. Um, so talk about some of the pieces you've written for this magazine. And you mentioned early on there was kind of a general approach, and then you kind of to get more what
Right. Yeah,
revealing
more like
or
a little
yeah.
deeper, yeah, for sure. I remember in the beginning, like we like the print theme I think was like concept of home and stuff, and I was just kind of talking really generally about like my friends and family and how they incorporated me into their sense of home, and it was kind of more like general fluffy stuff. And then like more recently I've been like I've started Zoloft recently, which is like an antidepressant, right? And I was talking about that in the latest issue about vulnerability and how like opening up about like using meds has been an interesting response in like, with my family and everything. And also how like talking to people about like using meds for mental health has been uh it's been interesting because I feel like some people are very much like, oh, awesome, that's great. And other people are like, oh, really? Like,
Mhm.
you need that. Uh, so yeah, so that was like one of my more vulnerable pieces that I really enjoyed writing that. I've also talked a lot about like my relationship as like to my family as like a caregiver in the role of mental health, like with my like dad and my mom and like how like
Mhm.
bipolar, schizophrenia, and how that like impacts like your role as a daughter, or how that impacts your role as like a family member that supports your parents. And that's been hard to share, but I think it's been a little, yeah, it's been very freeing for me for that like
Say
story
more
to
about that. What do you mean specifically? Your role as caregiver?
yeah, yeah, I think it's like I always think I feel like I am an emotional core of my family unit because it's like we're immigrants, so we don't have too much extended family here. So it's just me, my younger sister, and my parents. And my dad, he has experience with like uh bipolar disorder, and my mom has some experiences with that as well, psychosis and everything. So when those things become active, I have to be the one to emotionally support. And I think that has been very hard for me growing up because like being raised with that like role in mind means that influences how I like approach emotional support in every other aspect of my life.
Mm,
But also it's been like probably one of the greatest sources of my strength because now I know how to deal with these emotions, these really difficult emotions, and approach them with sensitivity and with tact and with like love. And so sharing about that has been it's probably the hardest thing to share about, even in like therapy. Like talking to my therapist about that stuff has been very difficult, but like that affects so much of the other stuff in my life. So
mm,
yeah.
mhm. Difficult in what sense? I mean, I can guess, but
Yeah, I guess it's been difficult because as I'm like sure you're aware, like therapy, like you dissect things in layers, right? So like realizing like this one layer has impacted so many other
mhm,
layers is it's kind of hard to like connect those in your head and be like, oh wait, this is all connected. And I feel like it's been enlightening but
mm.
difficult at the same time.
Very cool. So you mentioned, well, in the bio, I mentioned that you were thinking about medical school, but then you said you maybe shifting. Talk
Yeah.
about that shift. And by the way, I'm sure our zillion listeners would agree, you'd be an incredible therapist or whatever the hell you decide to do.
Yes. Yeah. 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 So like originally with medicine, it felt kind of like I wanted to do it. I was good at biology. I was good at like science. I still am pretty good at science. And I wanted to help people. And it just in the limited view of like being an Indian American and being like doctor, engineer, lawyer, it felt like of the three, I wanted to be like a doctor. And a lot of the stuff I still like about medicine, but I really like the talking to people and like learning more about my own purpose or like what drives me. I really love that emotional side of things. I really love
Mm,
exploring like the mind and like emotions and how those interact. And I like while I was good at biology and stuff, it didn't like give me that same like I guess rush or that same like I want to explore everything about this type of feeling. So uh so I realized I really did want to go into therapy. And I think even when I did say I wanted to go to medicine, I was thought like psychiatry, or I thought of exploring that area. So it
Mhm.
wasn't like too big of a shift for me in terms of that. But it was a big shift for my family because yeah.
Well, I would imagine, and I mean, I would really commend you on the fact that you're honoring your
Mhm.
gut at such an early age. I mean, a lot of people in your position, right, they go through the whole journey of becoming a doctor and realizing at maybe a too late point that shit, what did I do? Why didn't I listen to myself? And instead, I listened to everyone else. That's hard to listen to
Yeah.
yourself and honor yourself.
Mhm. Yeah. It is. And I think it like what I found is like even when I do honor myself, not everyone is going to agree. And like you still got to do it. You still got to honor yourself because at the end of the day, it's your happiness and like your life.
There you go. There you go. All right. So what's involved? What's next for you and the magazine?
Yeah, so approaching like my final year at university means like it'll probably be my last year on the magazine, but we're gonna have I really want to expand its reach on social media and expand the reach, like get more pieces on our website, like just make sure that more students are aware of it. I think that's my biggest
Yeah,
goal with the magazine because I think just that's probably our biggest block right now from accessing more students. Yeah.
I think
Um,
that would be awesome. And I think, you know, you mentioned vulnerability kind of early on. That's such a key piece, I think, for a lot of people. And when other people hear other people like yourself talk about that
mhm,
and share and are open, it really does encourage them to do the
mhm.
same.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's the whole point of the magazine itself, right? Just an outlet for vulnerability. Mhm.
Awesome. All right, Vaishnavi, I'd like to have you back at a later time.
Yeah,
So you're going to be a senior next year.
next year. Yep.
Okay, okay. We'll keep in touch. And wow, awesome. So what's the best way for people to get
Awesome.
in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can find me at my Instagram, I guess, at Vaishnavi Katta, just my name.
Okay,
And then like the for Mentality Magazine, if you just search up Mentality Magazine, we have a contact me page on our website. So yeah, if you want to get
awesome.
pieces in there.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure having you on here. And like I said, I'd love to have you back at a later date.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye.